Hello, Bobby, aka Anarcha Media here, and in this video, I am going to talk about a subject that I have had personal experience with and which has piqued my interest for quite some time now, which is the effect of YouTube on the rather deleterious and destructive effect at that of YouTube and other social media platforms on social philosophy and social psychology understanding, right? And I am further going to go into greater detail as to my philosophical influences and how researching actual philosophers helped me escape the entrapment of social media pseudo-philosophy in all its alienating glory. And of course, when it comes to YouTube pseudo-philosophy, there are a few common names that come up. Davis M.J. Arini, Jordan Peterson, and of course, someone I regret to say perhaps regret is too strong a term, but yeah, someone who once was a great influence upon me, Stefan Molyneux. And of course, Stefan Molyneux is very well known, even outside of YouTube circles, and right libertarian circles now. But I actually was aware of Mr. Molyneux since he was going by the username Stefan early on in his YouTube career. And, back then, he was, he had some problematic views regarding women and and families and things of that nature, and of course a lot of legal trouble has emerged regarding the whole defooing thing, but that sort of aspect of Mr. Molyneux's character has been discussed and trod over by leftists and non-leftists alike. So that's basically a dead horse at this point. So I am not going to talk about that. Instead, I want to talk about Mr. Molyneux's role in what I would describe as a degeneration and systematic internal destruction of actual philosophy by such pseudo-philosophical charlatans as Mr. Molyneux. And something important to note about Mr. Molyneux is he does not have a degree in philosophy. Why do I say this? Am I saying that having a formal degree in philosophy means that you absolutely cannot understand philosophy? No. However, the thing about Mr. Molyneux that is concerning to me is he claims to understand ancient philosophers better than they actually understood themselves. And if you understand anything about human psychology, you should immediately understand what a narcissistic proposal that is. And what is particularly concerning is the fact that Mr. Molyneux tends to accuse people within governments and non-governmental organizations who pursue policies that Mr. Molyneux and his followers at Free Domain Radio, of course they'd probably object to the term followers, but they in essence are. Like, like, they use the same language as Mr. Molyneux does. They use the same rhetorical tricks as he does. They use the same weird-ass sort of pseudo-psychological, pseudo-behavioristic language that he uses, which is funny because he claims to consider both behaviorism and psychology to be pseudosciences. And he also claims to be an empiricist and a rationalist, despite his standards for hard evidence being, again, very contradictory and very different from what most actual empiricists would accept as hard evidence. Also, so his interpretations of Plato, Aristotle, Kant, Descartes, and various other philosophers are just dead fucking wrong. To say that they're, to the point that to say that they are mischaracterizations, would be charitable. They're more like character assassinations, and that is one of Mr. Molyneux's primary tricks. It always has been. The irony of Mr. Molyneux's character since he started on YouTube, and again, I have been following Mr. Molyneux almost since he's started on YouTube, and whilst initially I disagreed with his more far-right leanings and his cultural conservatism, he said some good shit about peaceful parenting and 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 like avoiding predators, whether of a psychological and sexual nature, and yeah, obviously there is a need for that, but what Mr. Molyneux does is he paints dissenters and critics of him as enemies. He loves to cry foul and and McCarthyism whenever the left accuses the right of being racist and having Nazi sympathies, despite the fact that there is actually evidence of Mr. Molyneux engaging in both of those things, although whether he is committing such things out of malice or ignorance is debatable. Now, personally, I think that it is probably a mix of the two, as whilst Mr. Molyneux clearly is not as intelligent as he presents himself to be, he is more than intelligent enough to recognize the consequences and the implications of his actions and his words. And so I can't really bring myself to claim that Mr. Molyneux cannot, to some extent at the very least, be conscious of the implications of his statements and the hypocrisy of many of his stances regarding immigration, not only in consideration of his own background, but also in consideration of his past claim to be an anarchist and an anti-authoritarian, which Mr. Molyneux has never truly been either of those things. And I know this because I am both of those things. And Mr. Molyneux believes himself to be this savior of philosophy, but like I said, in many ways he is its destroyer. And why do I say that? It is because one of the cardinal rules of philosophy is avoiding false confidence, and Mr. Molyneux violates that rule all the fucking time. Now, obviously, I am not saying that I have not been guilty of that as well. I'm only human after all. However, at least I comp to it and try to do better, to be more consistent in my seeking in the future. Mr. Molyneux, however, repeats the same fallacies over and over and over again and makes excuses and tries to bullshit his way out of being held accountable for any of it. And of course, his free domain radio cultist. I'm just gonna call them that because that's in fact what they are. And I'm I'm saying this as someone who used to be on the periphery of that little so-called philosophy club, which it really isn't. It's a sophistry club. It's a sophistry factory, which is also the great irony of Mr. Molyneux's character. He loves to accuse anyone who disagrees with him of being a sophist, yet as philosophy lines, and various other people have demonstrated, he is in fact a sophist by his own definition. It's fucking hilarious. Also, as much as Mr. Molyneux likes to talk about non-aggression and peaceful parenting, he does not he does not show examples of that authentically occurring within his own lifestyle. And in fact, like, there are things that have come out about his home life that have shown, or at least suggested, that his own parenting style towards his daughter may not be anything even remotely resembling peaceful, which again, if these rumors are true, would, and there are certain, like, voice clips I've heard of Mr. Molyneux at home that suggest that they very well may be. Now, of course, another thing about challenging Mr. Molyneux that is very difficult is, like, he, as much as he claims to be a great, believer in free access and, not believing in intellectual property law and things of that nature, he has on multiple occasions employed false DMCAs in order to sweep away any YouTube footage or voice clips that may paint him in a light that is different than this sort of godlike philosopher king he wants to present himself as to his listeners on free domain radio and all over YouTube. And This has been Bobby, aka Anarcha Media. Liberty, equality, fraternity, goodbye.